This is my audience.
If one day everybody just stopped caring about each other and the community that we live in, the world would start to fall apart. Being an active member of society can help greatly improve our community. We can do that in 3 ways. The first one being by voting, the second one being by lobbying for change, and finally the third one being for donating your time and your resources. We should all very much care about our community that we live in and always be trying to help and improve that. So that first one being voting is really easy. Voting is important for 2 reasons. Those being because it determines where your money goes and because the politicians that you vote for have that influence to create big major changes that we would like to see in our society. So the first one being determining where your money goes. Politicians determine where your tax money will go. According to the AACT, elected officials will decide how to pay for public services with the money collected from taxes and how to share the tax burden. So it's very important that we participate and we vote to determine where those funds go, because if we don't, then somebody else or they will determine it for us. So it's very important that we go out and we vote to make sure that the tax money is going where we want it to go. Another reason is Social Security and other forms of social plans. They're very important in helping. According to Trinzy and Sains, the poverty rate has fallen by nearly half since 1967, and that is largely due to the growing effectiveness of economic security programs such as Social Security, food assistance, and tax credits for working families. So it's very important that we vote to try and not only maintain those social programs, but also try and expand them so that way we can reduce our poverty lines even further. Another reason that we want to participate in voting is because those politicians that we vote for influence our society a lot. The reason why is because we want to make sure that we're voting for people who want to make these big changes for us, such as the first one being universal health care. Universal health care is a basic right, and a universal health care program would make it so that everybody has access to healthcare and we're all getting the same level of care. And getting the same level of care is very important because, according to Masterclass, this will lead to a longer, healthier life, which would help reduce social inequality. Another thing we want to try and get is free education. So it's very important that we also align with people who want free education, because this will help reduce the inequality between the rich people and people who cannot afford as much to pay for college. So it's very important that we try to lower that and we create more equal opportunities for people to actually get higher paying jobs because they have been influenced with higher paying education. So now if there is free education, we all have the opportunity to achieve that and all get higher paying jobs. So it's very, very important that we all participate in elections, national elections, and even local elections are all very important. And if we're doing that, then we are really helping to influence our community and society. The second thing is a little bit more active than just voting is, and that is lobbying for change. You can lobby for change in 2 ways, and I think those ways are by petitions and protests. petitions are really important because they are a way to get people, or to get politicians especially, to listen to you, to understand what you want. And you can influence petitions in two ways. The first one is just being like looking for petitions, like knowing people who have some, looking for them online, signing petitions. Just make sure that the petitions that you are signing are legitimate, and you can also share those petitions with other people, and that will also help get the word out. Another thing you can do is create your own petitions and spread those around in your community and get people to lobby for change that you want. And the second one being protesting. Protesting is important because a lot of times, historically, protesting is the only way that people who were disadvantaged were able to get into the minds of people who are privileged. And I think that it's very important that privileged people hear the voices of disadvantaged people and understand like why they want change. And I believe that protests get the point across a lot quicker, and it calls for governments to actually work quicker. And protests can channel specific demands, potentially enhancing government responsiveness. And that's according to ATAS and Stokes. So while that is a more active form of participation, it is really influential. So the past 2 points that we were talking about, both voting and lobbying for change, are both on the political level. Moving on to the personal level, we can be donating our time and our resources. And both of those things are very important. Volunteering is a big one. According to Rominger, many nonprofit organizations rely on volunteers to accomplish day-to-day objectives and to reach long-term goals. So giving our time to nonprofits that we support are going to be really helpful in the end. We can also volunteer at homeless shelters. They always need people, and it's always great to just be able to volunteer and keep those people off of the streets. Another thing we can do is donating. We can donate clothes and food. A lot of people rely on the clothes and food that are donated, specifically like homeless people in the winter. That a lot of homeless people will get hypothermia from not having the proper clothing, and they will die from hypothermia. And food, obviously everybody needs food, and so donating food is a big one. Another thing is donating money. A lot of shelters and nonprofits rely on donations, like shelters to keep like electricity running, and like stuff that they didn't get in donations they can pay for with the donation money. So while that one was pretty consuming, it is the most influential one. So voting and lobbying for change and donating all improves our community that we live in, and we all really need to start participating more in order to improve our community, because if we don't, then nobody else will, and we're the ones living in it, so we should care the most.